The unexpected encounter. The night sky stretched endlessly above the remote observatory, a tapestry of stars undimmed by the pollution of distant cities. Dr. Jack Morrison hunched over his computer terminal, his fingers flying across the keyboard as he analyzed the latest data from the radio telescope array. At 32, Jack was already a rising star in the field of astrophysics, his brilliant mind more at home among equations and stellar phenomena than in the company of other humans. A soft beep from one of the monitors caught his attention. Jack's brow furrowed as he noticed an anomaly in the incoming signal. It wasn't the usual background radiation or the steady pulse of a pulsar. This was something different, a pattern that tickled the edge of his consciousness with its alien regularity. "What are you?" Jack muttered, leaning in closer to the screen. He began to run the signal through various filters and analysis programs, his excitement growing with each passing moment. This was no natural phenomenon. The signal was clearly artificial, and it was aimed directly at Earth. Hours passed in a blur of furious typing and muttered calculations. As the first light of dawn began to creep over the horizon, Jack sat back in his chair, his mind reeling with the implications of what he had discovered. He had just detected the first confirmed signal from an extraterrestrial intelligence. Jack's hand hovered over the phone, ready to alert his colleagues and the proper authorities. But something held him back. A lifetime of social awkwardness and professional rivalries make him hesitate. What if he was wrong? What if this was all some elaborate hoax or a mistake in his calculations? Before he could make a decision, the computer screen flickered and went dark. Jack frowned, reaching for the power button, when suddenly the monitor burst to life with a flash of alien symbols. They swirled and coalesced, forming into a face that was both mesmerizingly beautiful and utterly inhuman. "Greetings, Earthling," a melodious voice emanated from the speakers, its tones unlike anything Jack had ever heard. "I am Queen Zara of the Valorian Empire, and I come to you in our hour of greatest need." Jack gaped at the screen, his scientific mind warring with the impossibility of what he was witnessing. I'm Dr. Jack Morrison," he stammered. "How is this possible? How are you transmitting this?" The alien queen's expression shifted to something that might have been a smile. "Our technology is far beyond your current understanding, Dr. Morrison, but it is that very advancement that now threatens our existence." As Jack listened, Queen Zara explained the plight of her people. The Valorians were an ancient race, having achieved interstellar travel millennia ago. But their pursuit of perfection through genetic engineering had led to a catastrophic flaw in their DNA. Now, their entire species faced extinction within a generation. "Our scientists have determined that human DNA contains a unique element that could be the key to our salvation," Zara continued. "But we need more than just genetic material. We need a human mind, one brilliant enough to understand our science and help us find a cure." Jack's mind raced with the implications. "And you chose me. Why?" "We have been monitoring your planet's communications for some time," Zara replied. "Your work in quantum physics and genetics has not gone unnoticed. You possess the rare combination of intelligence and imagination that we require." A part of Jack wanted to laugh at the absurdity of it all. Here he was, a man who could barely hold a conversation at a faculty mixer, being asked to save an entire alien civilization. But a larger part of him, the part that had always dreamed of making a real difference in the universe, felt a thrill of excitement. "What exactly are you asking of me?" Jack asked, his voice steadier than he felt. Zara's alien features softened. "We ask you to leave your world behind and journey with us to the stars, to work alongside our greatest minds in a race against time. It will be dangerous, and there is no guarantee of success. But if we succeed, you will have saved an entire species from extinction." Jack's heart pounded in his chest. This was far beyond anything he had ever imagined. The rational part of his brain screamed that this was insane, that he should alert the authorities and let them handle first contact. But another voice, one that spoke of adventure and the pursuit of knowledge, grew louder with each passing moment. "If I agree, Jack said slowly. How would this work? When would we leave? Time is of the essence, Zara replied. Our ship is already in orbit around your planet, cloaked from your detection systems. If you agree, we can bring you aboard immediately. Jack glanced around his cluttered office at the life he had built for himself. It was a good life, filled with intellectual pursuits and academic accolades. But it was also a lonely one, devoid of the kind of grand purpose that now presented itself. Taking a deep breath, Jack made his decision. I'll do it, he said, his voice firm with newfound resolve. I'll help you and your people, Queen Zara. A look of relief washed over the alien queen's face. Thank you, Dr. Morrison. Your courage will not be forgotten. Prepare yourself. We will transport you to our ship in exactly 1 hour. As the transmission ended, Jack sat in stunned silence for a moment. Then, with a burst of manic energy, he began to gather what few possessions he couldn't bear to leave behind. Books, data drives, and a handful of personal items went into a battered old backpack. An hour later, as the sun climbed higher in the sky, Jack stood outside the observatory. He took one last look at the world he was leaving behind, his heart pounding with a mixture of fear and exhilaration. A beam of shimmering light engulfed him, and Jack felt a strange tingling sensation throughout his body. In the blink of an eye, the familiar landscape of Earth vanished, replaced by the sleek, alien interior of a Valorian starship. As his vision cleared, Jack found himself face to face with Queen Zara herself. She was even more striking in person, her otherworldly beauty both captivating and slightly unsettling. Welcome aboard, Dr. Morrison, Zara said, extending a hand in what she must have learned was a human greeting. Your journey to save our people begins now. As Jack shook the alien queen's hand, he knew that his life would never be the same. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he was ready to face them. For the first time in his life, Jack Morrison felt truly alive, standing on the threshold of the greatest adventure humanity had ever known. Cosmic chess and the quantum conundrum. As the Valorian starship hurtled through the cosmos at speeds Jack's mind could barely comprehend, he found himself in a dizzying crash course on alien technology. The ship's quantum drive didn't just bend space-time. It wove through it like a needle through fabric, creating shortcuts in the universe that defied human understanding of physics. Think of it as cosmic chess, Queen Zara explained, her iridescent eyes gleaming with amusement at Jack's bewildered expression. Each move we make ripples across multiple dimensions, allowing us to traverse vast distances in the blink of an eye. Jack's fingers danced across holographic displays, his mind racing to keep up with the influx of new information. This is incredible, he breathed, watching as complex equations floated in the air around him. Your understanding of quantum mechanics is light years beyond ours. And yet, Zara said softly, it is your primitive DNA that holds the key to our salvation. The universe has a sense of irony, doesn't it, Dr. Morrison? As the days passed, Jack threw himself into studying Valorian genetics. Their DNA was a marvel of engineering, each strand a work of art that had been perfected over millennia. But within that perfection lay the seeds of their destruction. It's like a fractal error, Jack mused, staring at the three-dimensional model of Valorian DNA floating before him. Each generation, the flaw compounds itself, becoming more pronounced. But why can't you scientists fix it? Zara's face clouded with frustration. Our genetic structure has become too rigid, too perfect. We've engineered out the very adaptability that might save us. That's why we need human DNA. Your chaotic, imperfect genes might hold the key to reintroducing the flexibility we've lost. As Jack worked, he couldn't help but notice the growing tension on the ship. The Valorian crew, while unfailingly polite, regarded him with a mixture of hope and skepticism. He caught whispers in the corridors, fragments of conversations in the musical Valorian language that his translator struggled to decipher. They're afraid, Zara confided in him one night, as they stood in the ship's observation deck, watching the kaleidoscope of stars streak by. Our people have been dying for generations. You represent their last hope, but also their greatest fear, that an outsider, a primitive human, might succeed where they have failed. Jack felt the weight of expectation pressing down on him. I'm not sure I can live up to their hopes, he admitted, running a hand through his disheveled hair. What if I can't find a solution? Zara turned to him, her alien features softening with an emotion Jack couldn't quite name. You've already given us something we'd lost, Jack. Hope. Whatever happens, know that your willingness to help us has already changed the course of our history. As the days turned to weeks, Jack's work took an unexpected turn. He began to see patterns in the Valorian DNA that reminded him of quantum entanglement, the spooky action at a distance that Einstein had once called horrifying. What if, he posited to Zara and her team of scientists, your genetic degradation isn't just a biological problem, but a quantum one? What if a flaw in your DNA is entangled across your entire species, propagating instantaneously regardless of distance? The idea was met with skepticism at first, but as Jack laid out his evidence, excitement began to build. If he was right, it could explain why no localized attempt to fix the problem had ever succeeded. But how do we fix a quantum-entangled genetic flaw? One of the Valorian scientists asked, his multifaceted eyes blinking rapidly in confusion. Jack grinned, feeling the thrill of scientific discovery coursing through him. We fight fire with fire. Or in this case, quantum with quantum. We need to create a quantum-entangled cure, one that will propagate through your species just as quickly as the flaw does. The next few days were a blur of feverish work. Jack's human intuition, combined with the advanced Valorian technology, led to breakthrough after breakthrough. They were on the verge of a solution, he could feel it. But as they neared Valorian space, a new tension began to build. Zara became increasingly distracted, holding hushed conversations with her advisors that ceased the moment Jack entered the room. Is everything all right? He asked her, concern etching his features. Zara hesitated, then squared her shoulders. Jack, there's something I need to tell you. The situation on our homeworld is complicated. There are factions within our government who oppose bringing you here. They believe that mixing our genetics with humans is a step too far, a dilution of our purity. Jack felt a chill run down his spine. Are we in danger? I won't lie to you, Zara said, her voice firm. There may be those who will try to stop our work, by any means necessary. But I promise you this, I will do everything in my power to protect you. As the Valorian homeworld came into view, a breathtaking sphere of swirling purples and blues, Jack felt a mix of awe and apprehension. He had come so far, given up everything he knew to help these people. Now, on the cusp of a breakthrough, he faced opposition from the very civilization he was trying to save. Whatever happens, he said, turning to Zara with determination in his eyes, we're in this together. I didn't come all this way to give up now. Zara's hand found his, her touch sending an electric thrill through him. Together, she agreed, her eyes shining with an emotion that transcended species. As the ship began its descent towards the Valorian capital, Jack steeled himself for whatever challenges lay ahead. He was no longer just a socially awkward physicist from Earth. He was humanity's ambassador to the stars, and he was ready to fight for the future of an entire civilization, even if that meant going up against those he had come to save. The fate of the Valorians, and perhaps the future of interstellar relations, now rested in the hands of an unlikely hero from Earth. As the ship touched down on alien soil, Jack Morrison took a deep breath, ready to face whatever the universe had in store for him next. Quantum diplomacy and the stellar crucible. As Jack stepped onto the iridescent surface of the Valorian homeworld, he felt the weight of 1,000 alien eyes upon him. The capital city was a marvel of organic architecture, towering spires that seemed to grow from the very planet itself, pulsing with bioluminescent light. Welcome to Zephyria, Queen Zara announced, her voice carrying a note of pride tinged with worry. The heart of the Valorian Empire, and hopefully the birthplace of our salvation. No sooner had they disembarked than they were surrounded by a delegation of Valorian dignitaries. Jack noticed the subtle shifts in their postures, the flickers of emotion that passed across their alien features. Even without understanding their language, he could sense the undercurrent of tension. Esteemed members of the High Council, Zara addressed the group, her tone regal and unwavering. I present to you Dr. Jack Morrison of Earth, the key to our survival. One of the counselors stepped forward, his crystalline eyes fixed on Jack with an unsettling intensity. So, this is the primitive who thinks he can succeed where generations of our greatest minds have failed. The translator rendered his words in English, but couldn't mask the disdain in his voice. Jack straightened his shoulders, meeting the alien's gaze. With all due respect, counselor, it's precisely because I come from a different background that I might see solutions you've overlooked. Science thrives on diverse perspectives. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Jack couldn't tell if it was approval or dissent, but he stood his ground, channeling a confidence he didn't entirely feel. Zora placed a hand on his shoulder, a gesture of support that sent a warmth through him. Dr. Morrison has already made significant progress in understanding the quantum nature of our genetic degradation. I propose we convene an emergency session of the Science Council to hear his findings. The next few hours were a whirlwind of political maneuvering and scientific debate. Jack found himself in a vast chamber, reminiscent of a living coral reef, presenting his theories to the assembled Valorian scientists. He spoke of quantum entanglement on a genetic scale, of the possibility of a cure that could propagate instantaneously across the entire species. But the implications of this are staggering, one of the Valorian scientists interjected. If our genetics are quantum entangled, it means we're far more interconnected than we ever realized. Changing one could change us all. Exactly, Jack said, excitement building in his voice. And that's not just a challenge, it's an opportunity. Imagine a cure that doesn't just fix the degradation, but enhances your entire species simultaneously. The chamber erupted in a cacophony of debate. Jack caught fragments of conversation, talk of ethical concerns, of the potential for unforeseen consequences. But he also saw the spark of hope igniting in many eyes. As the session concluded, Jack felt drained but exhilarated. He had held his own in a debate with some of the most advanced minds in the galaxy, but his triumph was short-lived. Dr. Morrison, a silky voice called out as he exited the chamber. Jack turned to see a tall, imposing Valorian approaching. I am Lord Vexalia, Minister of Genetic Purity. Your theories are intriguing, but I fear they pose too great a risk to our people. Jack felt a chill run down his spine. With respect, Minister, the real risk is doing nothing. Your people are dying. Vexalia's eyes narrowed. Perhaps. But some would argue that diluting our genetic perfection with human DNA is a fate worse than extinction. Tread carefully, Dr. Morrison. Not all of us are as welcoming as our queen. As the minister glided away, Jack felt the full weight of the challenge before him. He wasn't just fighting against a genetic flaw. He was up against centuries of ingrained beliefs and political machinations. Later that evening, as Jack stood on a balcony overlooking the alien cityscape, Zara joined him. You did well today, she said softly. You've given many of our people hope for the first time in generations. Jack turned to her, struck once again by her otherworldly beauty. But it's not enough, is it? There are still those who oppose this, who see me as a threat. Zora's expression turned grave. The path ahead will not be easy. There are trials, ancient rites that our laws demand any outsider must pass before being allowed to alter our genetics. Trials that many believe are impossible for a human to survive. Jack's heart raced, a mix of fear and determination coursing through him. What kind of trials? Tests of the body, mind, and spirit, Zara explained. Designed to prove your worth, your commitment to our people. Jack, these trials have killed many Valorians. For a human, she trailed off, unable to finish the thought. Jack took a deep breath, gazing out at the alien horizon. He thought of Earth, so distant now, of the life he'd left behind. Then he looked at Zara, at this incredible civilization on the brink of extinction. In that moment, he knew there was no turning back. "I'll do it," he said, his voice steady with resolve. "Whatever these trials are, I'll face them. Your people gave me a chance when they brought me here. Now it's my turn to prove that humanity is worthy of that trust." Zora's eyes shimmered with an emotion Jack couldn't quite name. She reached out, taking his hand in hers. The touch sent a jolt through him, a connection that seemed to transcend their biological differences. "Then let the stellar crucible begin," she whispered. "May the cosmos grant you strength, Jack Morrison, for all our sakes." As the twin moons of the Valorian world rose in the alien sky, Jack steeled himself for the challenges ahead. He was no longer just a physicist from Earth. He was ambassador for his species, a potential savior for an alien race, and perhaps something even more to the enigmatic queen who had brought him across the stars. The stellar crucible awaited, a gauntlet of impossible tests that would push him to his very limits. But as Jack looked into Zara's eyes, he knew that he would face whatever the universe threw at him. For science, for the Valorians, and for a future he was only beginning to imagine, the nexus of possibilities. The stellar crucible loomed before Jack, a colossal structure that seemed to defy the laws of physics. Its ever-shifting, fractal architecture pulsed with an otherworldly energy that made his skin tingle. As he stood at the entrance, flanked by Zara and a retinue of Valorian officials, Jack felt like he was staring into the heart of a living universe. "The trials within the crucible exist in a state of quantum superposition," Zara explained, her voice hushed with reverence. "Each challenge will adapt to you, pushing you to your absolute limits. No two beings ever face the same tests." Jack swallowed hard, his mind racing with equal parts fear and scientific curiosity. A personalized gauntlet of impossibility. "Sounds fun," he quipped, trying to mask his nervousness with humor. Lord Vexalia stepped forward, his crystalline eyes glinting with barely concealed disdain. "Remember, human, should you fail any of the trials, the consequences will be most severe." The threat in his words was unmistakable. With a final nod to Zara, Jack stepped into the crucible. The entrance sealed behind him, and he found himself in a void of swirling colors and shifting realities. A disembodied voice, neither male nor female, echoed through his mind. "Jack Morrison of Earth, you stand at the nexus of possibilities. Your trials begin now." Suddenly, the void coalesced into a massive labyrinth. But this was no ordinary maze. Its walls shifted and changed with each step, responding to Jack's thoughts and emotions. He realized with a start that to navigate this trial, he would need to master his own mind. "Okay, Jack," he muttered to himself. "Time to put that big brain of yours to work." As he progressed through the labyrinth, Jack encountered mathematical puzzles of mind-bending complexity, riddles that seemed to draw from the collective knowledge of 1,000 alien cultures, and ethical dilemmas that forced him to question his deepest beliefs. One moment, he was solving quantum equations to stabilize a miniature black hole. The next, he was navigating a moral quandary involving time travel and the preservation of alien ecosystems. Each challenge pushed him to his intellectual and ethical limits. Hours or days might have passed. Time had no meaning in the crucible. Jack emerged from the labyrinth mentally exhausted but victorious, only to find himself facing the next trial. The world around him dissolved into a gladiatorial arena. Holographic spectators roared as a series of increasingly formidable opponents materialized before him. These weren't just tests of physical prowess, but of adaptability and quick thinking. Jack dodged energy blasts from a 6-armed alien warrior, using his knowledge of physics to predict the beam trajectories. He outsmarted a shape-shifting creature by understanding its genetic structure and exploiting its weaknesses. With each victory, he felt himself growing stronger, faster, more in tune with his body and mind. As the final opponent fell, Jack stood panting in the center of the arena, his body aching but his spirit unbroken. He had surprised even himself with his resourcefulness and determination. The arena faded away, replaced by a serene garden that seemed to stretch infinitely in all directions. Here, Jack faced his greatest challenge yet, a journey into the depths of his own psyche. Spectral figures from his past materialized around him, his parents, disappointed by his decision to leave Earth, colleagues who had doubted him, even a version of himself, bitter and cynical, who had chosen safety over adventure. "You don't belong here," the apparitions whispered. "You're not good enough, you'll fail, and 2 civilizations will pay the price for your arrogance." Jack felt doubt creeping in, threatening to overwhelm him. But then he remembered Zara's faith in him, the hope he had seen in the eyes of the Valorian scientists. He thought of Earth, so distant now, and the bridge he was building between 2 worlds. "No," he said firmly, his voice growing stronger with each word. "I am exactly where I need to be. I may not be perfect, but I am capable. I am worthy, and I will not fail." The garden erupted in a supernova of light and color. When Jack's vision cleared, he found himself back at the entrance to the crucible. Zara, Lord Vexalia, and the other Valorians stared at him in astonishment. "Impossible," Vexalia breathed. "No one has ever completed the trials so quickly, let alone a human." Zara stepped forward, her eyes shining with a mixture of relief and something deeper, more profound. "Jack Morrison of Earth," she proclaimed, her voice ringing with authority, "you have proven yourself worthy. The knowledge and resources of the Valorian Empire are now at your disposal." As the assembled Valorians bowed their heads in respect, Jack felt a surge of confidence and purpose. He had faced the impossible and emerged victorious. Now it was time to save a civilization. "Thank you," he said, his voice steady and assured. "Now let's cure this genetic degradation and forge a new future for Valorians and humans alike." As they left the crucible, Jack noticed a change in the way the Valorians looked at him. Gone was the skepticism and disdain, replaced by respect and hope. Even Lord Vexalia seemed begrudgingly impressed. But Jack's trials were far from over. As they approached the royal laboratories, a young Valorian scientist rushed up to them, his face etched with panic. "Your Majesty," he gasped, addressing Zara. "We've discovered something terrible. The genetic degradation, it's accelerating exponentially. We have weeks, not years, before our species reaches the point of no return." The weight of this news settled over the group like a shroud. Jack felt the eyes of every Valorian turn to him, filled with desperate hope. He took a deep breath, squaring his shoulders. "Then we'd better get to work," he said, striding purposefully towards the lab. "The clock is ticking, and we've got a species to save." As the laboratory doors slid open, revealing a wonderland of advanced alien technology, Jack felt a thrill of excitement cutting through his apprehension. Here, at the intersection of human ingenuity and Valorian science, he would face his greatest challenge yet. The fate of an entire civilization rested in his hands. But after conquering the stellar crucible, Jack Morrison was ready for anything the universe might throw at him. Little did he know, the true test was only just beginning. The quantum nexus gambit. The Valorian Royal Laboratory hummed with an energy that transcended the merely physical. Holographic displays flickered with incomprehensible alien script, and machines that defied Earth's laws of physics whirred in harmony. At the center of this technological marvel stood Jack Morrison, his eyes alight with determination and the reflection of 1 billion data points. "We're missing something," Jack muttered, his fingers dancing across a floating interface. "The quantum entanglement is more complex than we thought. It's not just genetic, it's temporal." Zara leaned in, her iridescent eyes narrowing. "Temporal, you mean?" "Time itself is a factor," Jack confirmed. "Your species' past, present, and future are quantumly linked. We're not just fighting a disease, we're battling causality itself." A murmur rippled through the assembled Valorian scientists. This revelation changed everything. "Impossible," Lord Vexalia scoffed, though a flicker of uncertainty crossed his face. "Even our most advanced temporal theories don't account for this." Jack spun to face him, a manic grin spreading across his face. Exactly. That's why you haven't been able to solve it. You've been thinking in linear terms. But the universe? It's a cosmic jazz improvisation, not a classical symphony. He turned back to the holographic display, his hands a blur as he input new calculations. We need to approach this laterally. Instead of trying to fix the degradation, we need to rewrite its history and future simultaneously. But the energy required for such a feat, one of the Valorian scientists gasped, it would be astronomical. That's where you're wrong, Jack countered. We don't need more energy. We need to tap into the energy that's already there, the quantum potential of every Valorian, past, present, and future. He pulled up a new simulation showing a complex network of interconnected nodes. I give you the quantum nexus. By linking the consciousness of every Valorian in a temporally non-linear network, we can create a feedback loop of genetic self-repair. The laboratory erupted in a cacophony of excited chatter. Even Lord Vexalia looked impressed, though he tried to hide it. Zora stepped forward, her voice cutting through the noise. This is beyond anything we've ever attempted. The risks are nothing compared to the certainty of extinction if we do nothing, Jack finished. He met her gaze, seeing the conflict in her otherworldly eyes. Zara, I know it's asking a lot, but this is our best shot. For a long moment, silence reigned in the lab. Then, slowly, Zara nodded. Very well, Dr. Morrison. We'll proceed with the quantum nexus gambit. The next 72 hours were a blur of feverish activity. Jack worked tirelessly, fueled by a cocktail of alien stimulants and sheer determination. He coordinated teams of Valorian scientists, melding human intuition with alien precision to bring his audacious plan to life. As the deadline approached, a massive structure took shape in orbit around the Valorian homeworld. The Quantum Nexus Array, a marvel of engineering that would make Earth's greatest achievements look like child's play. It's ready, Jack announced, his voice hoarse from exhaustion. He stood on the bridge of the orbital station, surrounded by banks of humming machinery. Now comes the hard part. Zora placed a hand on his shoulder, her touch sending a familiar jolt through him. You've done the impossible, Jack. Whatever happens next, know that you've given us hope. Jack managed a tired smile. Let's hope it's enough. As the Valorian population linked into the quantum nexus, Jack took his place at the central control hub. His hands hovered over the activation sequence, a bead of sweat rolling down his temple. Here goes everything, he muttered. With a deep breath, Jack initiated the quantum nexus gambit. The universe seemed to hold its breath. For one eternal moment, nothing happened. Then, reality itself began to warp. Jack felt his consciousness expanding, merging with the billions of Valorian minds linked through the nexus. He saw flashes of their history, great triumphs and terrible mistakes, the long march of evolution that had led them to this point. And he saw the flaw, the temporal knot that had doomed them to extinction. With the collective will of an entire species behind him, Jack reached out across time and space to unravel it. The strain was immense. Jack felt like his mind was being torn apart and reassembled with each passing nanosecond. But he held on, guided by an instinct that transcended mere human understanding. Just when he thought he couldn't take any more, something shifted. The knot unraveled, and a wave of genetic renewal cascaded through the Valorian species, rippling backward and forward through time. With a gasp, Jack snapped back to his physical body. Alarms blared throughout the station as systems overloaded from the enormous energy discharge. Did it work? He croaked, struggling to focus on the readings before him. Zora's joyous laugh was all the answer he needed. Jack, look. On the view screen, they watched as a golden wave washed over the Valorian homeworld. Everywhere it touched, withered plants burst into bloom, and ailing Valorians stood straighter, their skin regaining its iridescent luster. You did it, Zora breathed, tears shimmering in her alien eyes. You saved us all. As the realization of his success sank in, Jack felt a wave of exhaustion crash over him. He slumped forward, caught in Zora's strong arms. "Rest now, hero of two worlds," she whispered. "You've earned it." In the days that followed, as Jack recovered from the ordeal, he watched in awe as Valorian society transformed. The genetic renewal had done more than cure their physical ailments. It had ushered in a new era of creativity and cooperation. The High Council, humbled by the success of Jack's primitive approach, voted to open diplomatic relations with Earth. Jack found himself at the center of it all, a bridge between two civilizations on the brink of an unprecedented alliance. As he stood on a balcony overlooking the Valorian capital, now thrumming with renewed life and energy, Jack felt a presence beside him. "Having second thoughts about returning to Earth?" Zora asked, a hint of vulnerability in her voice. Jack turned to her, struck once again by her otherworldly beauty and the depth of emotion in her eyes. "I think," he said slowly, "that my greatest adventure is just beginning." As their hands intertwined, human and Valorian, Jack knew that he stood at the threshold of a new chapter, not just for himself, but for two species destined to reach for the stars together. The quantum nexus had saved the Valorians, but it had also forged a connection that would reshape the galaxy. And at the heart of it all stood Jack Morrison, no longer just a socially awkward physicist, but a cosmic pioneer, bridging worlds and defying the impossible. As the twin suns of the Valorian world set on this chapter of their shared story, Jack and Zara looked to the horizon, ready to face whatever wonders and challenges the vast, quantum universe had in store for them next.